Hello, BookTube. I have a brief Wednesday MegaStuff for you here, a MegaStuff video where we'll fit in a bunch of little things. I did, in lieu of a MegaStuff video yesterday, I did a mail video, just an ordinary mail haul, like the kind we used to do every day before the pandemic. And I heard from quite a few of you. I heard from quite a few of you saying that you like the MegaStuff element of these videos. Many moving parts instead of... Once again, the active question, if with 3 sneezes in a row, is it 3 sneezes in a row, or is it the first 3 of 400 sneezes, of 5 solid hours of a sneeze every 21 seconds? And there's no way to know. We'll just press forward. A number of you emailed me. I leave my email on every video. Feel free to email me. A number of you emailed and said that you wanted all of the MegaStuff stuff. So I will include a bunch of MegaStuff today. We can start with a hashtag am reading. I'll give you a couple of things that I am reading. I just finished this morning Jingle All the Way, the latest little book by Debbie Macomber. This is about a brittle workaholic who was sent on a vacation and by her boss, who's worried for her state of mind and also worried for his favorite niece, who the brittle workaholic is dead set on firing from the company. And when she's on vacation, she meets the love of her life. In the bare bones of it, I think we hauled this book. On the bare bones of it, it's in other words completely predictable romantic stuff. I read it for this author's particular narrative voice, which is very friendly and very nice. There were a couple of elements in this one that jarred on me the wrong way, that seemed a little bit unexamined and maybe a little bit rushed, especially in terms of the main character's relationship with the company that she effectively runs. It seemed to me that there was a lot of backhand sexism that is not overturned in the course of the book, that's not really even examined. But that might be a minor thing. That probably is a very minor thing. Certainly there's nothing overt. And in terms of am reading also, since this is Wednesday, and once upon a time Wednesday was New Comic Book Day, I have been re-examining my comics in great detail, especially my graphic novels, hardcover and paperback. And the one that I've been looking at this week has been from the 1990s. You can tell because of the hair and the attitude, the huge prevalence of firearms, and the ridiculous costumes. This is X-Force, a run done on the book by writer Fabian Nicienza and artist Greg Capullo. Greg Capullo is one of those comic book artists who jumps forward in quality every time he has a major brief, but also often changes style. If you look at Greg Capullo's long run on Spawn, for instance, you would never guess that it's the same artist as the one on this. And the one on this is significantly different, significantly more Jim Lee-ish than the one on Quasar, for instance. This is a weird run. It's the dramatic gist of it is the return of a character named Cable, who is at the beginning of the series is presumed dead. Cable is a future version. He's from the future. He is the grown-up and bitterly militarized son of Cyclops and Jean Grey. And he comes back in time, and in the course of his adventures with the X-Men, forms a team of his own, a team of young mutants of his own. We're supposed to see in that a kind of fractured mirror version of Professor Xavier forming a team of his own, or of Magneto, the arch-villain, forming the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, also a team of his own, of mutants, each one guided by a dream, each one guided by a vision of how mutants should behave around humans. And although, the return of Cable is the dramatic point on which this story hinges, but the focal point is this character right here, Sam Guthrie, who was introduced in a Marvel graphic novel called The New Mutants. He's from the American South. He was a coal miner and with a hopeless future in front of him, but he has a mutant ability, and when it ignites, he suddenly is invited to join the X-Men in a kind of a junior cadet team of New Mutants. And he's had a long and storied history since then, and a long series of adventures and incarnations after this, in the 40 years after this. 30 years after this. But in this one, he is reimagined as a team leader. Before any of his friends know that Cable is still alive, they're the young mutants who were sort of quasi. This is what I mean by 90s flair. Look at the size of those shoulder pads. He assembles a team, and it's not a very good team. I have to say, it's not a very good team. Most of the characters in it are as poorly defined as Sam Guthrie, as Cannonball himself. There's Shatterstar, who is a ripoff of a character named Longshot, which is a bad place to start right there. There's who else is on this team? There's the requisite Marvel superhero teams, especially in the 1990s, always had a female character who was basically a huge house cat. And that female character was always, quippy comic relief, always utterly useless in a fight, always grooming herself, licking her own tail, eating mice. The feral female character in this book eats a mouse raw, and her teammates don't seem to mind. In a superhero team called West Coast Avengers, there's yet another of these utterly perfunctory female cat characters. She also eats mice in the kitchen pantry. At least she's being useful. But there's also a character named Proudstar, who is a knockoff of another character, a knockoff of a character called Thunderbird, who dies in one of the early issues of the all-new, all-different X-Men. And that's kind of bad, right? That's kind of bad news when when a lot of the characters on your team are knockoff characters of more interesting versions of other people. But there's also a character named Richter, who has seismic abilities that he somehow generates through his hands. But in the course of the story, Greg Capullo is obviously given the task of redesigning the costumes of most of the characters. I'm trying to remember if I named all the characters. A large number of the characters are knockoffs of more interesting characters. There's the Thunderbird knockoff. Feral is herself a knockoff version of the female cat characters that have proliferated in Marvel Comics for years before her. Shatterstar is a knockoff of Longshot. There's a character named Siren, who is a knockoff of a character named Banshee. I don't know whether Fabian Nicienza was trying to recapture the magic of the all-new, all different X-Men, the team that was launched by Len Wein and Dave Cockrum to superstardom, by intentionally mimicking the templates. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it's a little bit disturbing. And this is another thing I mentioned with Greg Capullo's artwork. I mentioned it with his run on Quasar, and then it shows up again in this run on the New Mutants. Or not these, I'm sorry, these aren't the New Mutants. These are called X-Force. They're called X-Force. And that thing is that the young men on the team start to look conspicuously good. I mean, supermodel good. They start to look supermodel good. Let me get you a costume picture. There are some of our heroes right there. That picture, there's lots of stuff that I want to say, but let's just say super masculine and, leading man quality Cannonball, Sam Guthrie, is not what this character had ever been presented as visually before. And so I've been reading this and I've been studying it and largely liking it. It's all a delaying action. There is actually a new omnibus edition that I very, very much want, but it's expensive. That's ordinarily no bar, and it won't be in this case. My beloved Legion of Superheroes had a long run called the 5 Years Later saga. I've talked about it on this channel before, and it has famously never been collected in any kind of reprint volume until now. Now there is a volume. It's a big, fat hardcover, and it's out there. It's available, and I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. But that's, in a way, those are the comics that I want to be studying. But I'm studying X-Force instead. Boy, oh boy, the writing does not hold up. I mean, not at all. The writing and the plotting don't hold up at all. Right away, when this storyline starts, our heroes are being confronted by Nick Fury and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And those of you who know your Marvel comics will think, oh, well, that's rather lopsided. Nick Fury and his Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have guns and armor, but the X-Force has superpowers. That shouldn't matter. That absolutely shouldn't matter. It should be no contest if you go up against a fully prepared Nick Fury and his team, no matter what superpowers you have. Why is it only the bad guys who develop the Sentinels or the Mandroids or whatever? I remember there's one famous run on that Frank Miller, the writer and artist Frank Miller, did on Daredevil. He wrote this. He didn't draw it. David Mazzucchelli did, called Born Again. And in that run, or maybe it was right after that run, but it was still the same creative team, Matt Murdock, who is Daredevil, granted has no offensive superpowers, he has heightened senses, but that's all. He encounters S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and is easily incapacitated by their technology. That should be true for the X-Men and any superpowered mutants. It should be true. For somebody with the research and development budget that Nick Fury commands, there shouldn't be any lopside. But the writing just in general is bad. I lost count halfway through this thing of how many different, unlikely, ham-handed, completely unnatural nicknames Sam Guthrie gives to one of his fellow teammates. Roberto da Costa was also a New Mutant. He's a character called Sunspot. And at one point on one page, Sam Guthrie refers to him as Bert. That would never happen. Another one, it's Berto. Another one, it's Robert or Robbie. It's like the writer doesn't even read his own stuff, to proofread it. But the artwork is making up for things. And then another detail is a little bit more disturbing, a little more ominous if it's true. Involves the saga of my Mailboy. After I lost Tom of Tipperary, my great mailman, I got just a shattered old 1,000-year-old civil servant who was perfectly serviceable. He could make small talk. He was nice to my dogs. And then one day, he was nowhere to be found, and the phone is wobbling because it is going nuts on the bed. With her classic snorting and choking. What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm trying to make a video. You're going nuts over there. Oh, God. And before any of you comment, yes, I know, I am messy. I am a messy person. That's nothing wrong with that. Everything's clean. It's just messy. Anyway, we're going to have to deal with the seismic shocks because she is still pounding away on the bed. But one day I rounded the corner and I was confronted with a new mail carrier, and he was a gorgeous boy, 22, 21 years old, floppy hair, massive wide muscles, deep pecs, and an outgoing personality, interested in reading. When he found out that I'm all about books, we started to talk about books and reading, and I even gave him a book, and I made him lots of recommendations. And those recommendations were, this is an inestimable help if you're trying to reclaim somebody for reading, those recommendations were seconded by members of his own family. And our interactions were short and masked and guarded, as they have to be in this age of the pandemic, and that was a little bit irritating to me. I would ordinarily have moved much faster to get to know this kid and, talk with him more often, but it was slow progress, very slow. And then one day, just recently, he was gone, and my old mailman was back, shuffling around in his fallen arches and his sloped shoulders. And I asked him, what's going on? And he said, I don't know. I have no idea. I was called in suddenly to take over my old route, and that's what I'm doing. Well, I ran into him yesterday, and he had disturbing news. Now, he doesn't know it's 100% true, and therefore neither do I, but his report is that my Mailboy tested positive for coronavirus, tested positive for COVID-19, and is therefore self-isolating. My mailman, my old mailman, has no idea if this is true, and if it is, of course, has no details about how serious it is. It's a perfect example of the kind of thing that I kick myself about, because I would be in email contact with this kid long since if we lived in normal times, if I didn't have to carefully guard my face-to-face time with anybody. But I'm not, so I don't have any idea what the story is there, but that's kind of disturbing. And I believe that's I've got Am Reading. I've got Wednesday Comics. I've got a Mailboy update. As far as tech goes, your tech update, I got a $40 burner tablet, something that I have now examined its innards, and it does not even have a brand name. I have no idea what it is. I guess the idea being that if you only pay $40 for it, you're not really going to care to go back to the manufacturer if it breaks. That $40 tablet is working just fine. I've been scouring it for weaknesses because it's working so fine. I've been scouring it to see what it isn't doing well. And so far, I've determined only two. One is that its battery seems to drain faster than an iPad's. I don't know if that's 100% true. Maybe I'm just being neglectful. And the other is that it has trouble finding Wi-Fi the further away from the router it gets. And this little book room is as far away from the router as you can get here at Hyde Cottage. And I don't know if that's the router's fault or the tablet's fault. So I've noticed that my iPad Mini my Mini Me has the same trouble finding that signal or whatever a router gives off when it's in this room. Now, I asked my surly houseboy about the state of the router here at Hyde Cottage. I said, is it I absolutely live on this thing. So is it absolute tippy top? Is it the best router that it could possibly be? And his response was, and I quote, "Bork," which on his homeworld I think means I'll look into it when I get a chance. So, so it might be that it's the router. But aside from that, we have mail. We have some mail here. The same amount of mail as yesterday, maybe even more so. But you wanted your MegaStuff. So let's see what this first one is. This first one is a priority mail envelope, so it might be from one of you. It might not be... what is that? What is this? Goodness gracious. Okay, I have maybe heard of this. What do we have any information? Oh, okay. All right. We do have information. All right. Well, fascinating then. Absolutely fascinating. So let me make sure that this is a 2020 release. It is. Okay. This is called the Brownsville, Texas Incident of 1906 by Lieutenant Colonel retired William Baker. The Brownsville, Texas Incident of 1906, a fairly substantially sized work of history. So let's find out about it. Oh no, well, okay. That is our author. Pretty impressive. And the back tells us about him. Graduated with honors from Howard University and received his MBA from Syracuse University in 1972. Outstanding military and academic achievements led him to the Office of Equal Opportunity at the Pentagon, where he reinvestigated the Brownsville incident of 1906. After extensive research, he prepared a case for the Department of the Army that resulted in the reversal of President Theodore Roosevelt's decision to dishonorably discharge the soldiers of the 1st Battalion, 25th Infantry, for shooting up the town of Brownsville, Texas. Based on Baker's work, the Secretary of the Army corrected the injustice and changed the soldiers' discharge to honorable. Good Lord, this guy researched and then stepped right out onto the stage of history. President Richard Nixon signed the resolution, bringing the national acclaim to the Army and to Baker. As a result of his painstaking work, Baker received the coveted Pace Award from the Secretary of the Army and the Legion of Merit in 1973. Secretary of the Army Robert F. Frolke said, quote, "Baker's achievement has brought favorable acclaim to the Army in the field of civil rights and has had a positive commitment to the elimination of racial injustice." Okay, so are we told anywhere in this... this could be self-published. Red Engine Press, this is probably effectively self-published. And shows a fault. This could be an advanced copy. But if this is what the finished copy is like, it shows a fault that is often present in self-published works. I want to tell self-published or small subsidy published authors, I want to tell them a very simple rule. Imitate what you see in bookstores. The reason it's there is because it works. What is missing from this book? A synopsis of what the Brownsville incident is. 99.9% of Americans aren't going to have any idea what it is. They're not going to know the details. The true and tragic story of a black battalion's wrongful disgrace and ultimate redemption. That doesn't tell you much. A paragraph on the back, you see there's plenty of room. You could condense this into one paragraph down here and give us a description of what the book's about. But I'm all for it. And I'm ecstatic because I am going to review this for an audience. And that is fantastic. And the reason that I know that is because of the envelope here. It comes from the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, the newspaper of Martha's Vineyard, one of the islands off the coast of Massachusetts that is a vacation haven that is now dealing with off-season. And I have a wonderful editor there who keeps me, tries to keep me supplied in books. And since this book is about Brownsville, and since it's about 100 years ago, and since Teddy Roosevelt only spent a tiny amount of time on the vineyard, and since my editor likes there to be a connection with the vineyard, I have to assume that Lieutenant Colonel William Baker lived on the vineyard, or maybe lives there still. I have to assume that. I'm not told anything. Oh, it's got endnotes, an index, illustrations. This is a completely real thing. Boy, oh boy. Okay, so I'm going to have to find out. In other words, I'll have to Google or ask my editor what the connection... There has to be a connection between this book and the vineyard. As odd as that is, there has to be. But this is overjoyed to review a work of serious history for an old school broadsheet newspaper. That is just brings back lots of memories. So that goes to the head of the list. I will read that tonight. And get to work on it. Now we have this next one. This next one is in one of these asbestos envelopes. Be very careful with it and keep the bean away from it. Oh, and it's a bound galley. It's not even an advanced copy. It's just somebody went to Kinko's and had the individual pages bound on this thing. Oh, fantastic. Okay. Okay, great. So this is from Oxford University Press. I don't have a cover to show you. I know what the cover looks like. This is, I believe, coming out this year. It's called The Sun King by Madawi al-Rashid. And the subtitle is Reform and Repression in Saudi Arabia. And it deals in large part with the title, the person in the mentioned in the title is Mohammed bin Salman. He is the Sun King mentioned in the title. And this deals with a lot of the changes that have been happening in the last 20, 30 years in the kingdom. But it also deals with the contract murder of Jamal Khashoggi, journalist for the Washington Post, who was lured to his death on the explicit, detailed instructions of Mohammed bin Salman. A person who should be in a jail at The Hague. He should not be living in comfort at all. Any other U.S. president in the history of this country, other than Donald Trump, would have said, hand him over, and all of the men who were his cat's paws, or we'll invade. I don't care that Jamal Khashoggi had dual citizenship. He was a journalist for the Washington Post, and you are caught on television or on telephone, not only ordering his death but orchestrating it. That you will lure him here for paperwork that he absolutely needs to sign, that he's going to want to sign. You'll get your friendliest person to talk to him. You will lower his suspicions. Then you will brutalize him, sodomize him, torture him, kill him, dismember him with a bone saw that you brought for that purpose, and as an extra benefit, I, Mohammed bin Salman, order two other things. Number one, the men who tortured him and then dissected him with bone saws must then wear his clothing out in public. And everyone in his family connected with him and under my authority must come on camera and fulsomely praise me. This is just pure evil, and any other president in the history of this country would have condemned it for what it was, would have demanded retribution, immediate retribution, personal retribution. You, on a plane, or we invade. And Donald Trump did not. Instead, when asked about this absolute obscenity, he talked about how many weapon systems the Saudis were going to buy from him. It's not that he passed over the subject in silence. It's that he profaned it. It was a deal that Khashoggi was getting in the way of. So I am curious to know, very curious to know, how this book will approach all this. One thing, I am certainly going to write about this, absolutely. But one thing that will make me, let's just say, intemperately negative towards this book is if it tries in any way to both sides or what about or apologize for that orchestrated assassination. A brutal, gory, orchestrated assassination with all the extra filigrees of a Marvel supervillain. If any attempt is made to rehabilitate that incident, if any attempt is made to put any kind of positive spin on Donald Trump's reaction to that atrocity, then this book is going to suffer at my hands. Absolutely. Jamal Khashoggi is not alive today. He's not alive now. He's not still writing and researching, and giving lectures, telling bad jokes. He's not doing any of that now because he was lured to his death. And every bit of that plot is known. Every detail of it is known. Nothing is lurking in shadows. Anyway, so this is an explosive book. Okay, so we're off to a fine start. Two really interesting works of nonfiction. Then we have two boxes. One is small, and one is huge. And then we'll be finished with this MegaStuff video. So let's see what the small one is. What have we got here? We got oh no, gross. It's an invoice. Oh my god, I touched it. What have we got here? Okay, no pub sheet, but this is a slim thing. It's a finished copy, also from Oxford, so this is probably out soon. This is by Stephen Fielding, Bill Schwartz, and Richard Toy, and it's called The Churchill Myths. Let's see what we have here. This is not a book about Winston Churchill. It is not principally about his politics, nor his rhetorical imagination, nor even about the man himself. Instead, it addresses the varied afterlives of the man and the persistent compulsion to bring him back from the dead, capturing and explaining the significance of the various Churchill myths to Britain's history and culture and current politics. The authors look at Churchill's portrayal in Social Memory. They devote the ways in which politicians have often used the idea of Churchill as a means of self-validation. Boris Johnson, perfect example, wrote a book on Churchill that I raked over the coals. Using him to show themselves as tough and honest players. They show the man dramatized and in film and television, an on-screen persona that is often the product of gratuitous mixing of fact and fantasy, one deliberately shaped to meet the preferences of the intended audience. They discuss his legacy in the light of the Brexit debate, showing how public figures on both sides of the Leave-Remain debate were able to use elements of Churchill's words and character to argue for their own point of view. Okay, so this will be about Churchill, because even in his own day, Churchill was mostly about those myths. But let's just see. Boris Johnson will certainly have many mentions in the index here. Yes, he has dozens and dozens of mentions in the index here. Okay, a slim work of history. We are 3 for 3 here. I can read this today. And then we have this box, and then we'll be done. And I'm hoping that this is great stuff. What a mail haul. Boy, oh boy. So let's see what we have. Oh, it's multiple things. It's multiple things. Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. Okay. All right. Well, we're fiction, and there were multiple books in here, so it's 3 for 3. We actually evened the score. This is Samantha Shannon, whose upcoming book in this series I just recently got. And here is Bloomsbury coming through with all of the older books in the series. So we have The Bone Season, The Song Rising, and The Mime Order. These lovely trade paperbacks. These are okay, I don't have the new book in front of me right now, but The Bone Season is the first in a 7-book series. The Mime Order is the second, and then The Song Rising, I assume, is the third. I'm gonna have to. I don't know the series as well as I'm going to need to in order to review the 4th book, but that's great. Now I have the whole set. Fantastic. All right, so let's do a Steve pile. It's going to be a little bit awkward here. We have mainly because of this thing. We have The Sun King, a study of modern Saudi Arabia and also Mohammed bin Salman, and then we have The Brownsville, Texas Incident of 1906, which I will be reviewing for the Masters Vineyard Gazette. So get your subscriptions. And then The Churchill Myths. A slim volume, it could be 5 times this long, on all of the ways that Churchill is used by posterity. And finally, Samantha Shannon's whole series, the whole series of these novels. leading up to the new one that's coming out, I think, in the new year. So that is our mail haul, and then we have a bunch of books and a tech update and a Mailboy update. So that is your MegaStuff video for today. I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.